API testing real-time scenarios and solutions. Interview questions and answers part_2. Scenario 1, API returns A204 no content response instead of expected data. Question 1, you make a valid request, but the API responds with A204, no content. How will you debug this? Answer. Possible causes and solutions. 1. Verify if the requested resource exists in the database. 2. Check if filters or query parameters are removing expected data. 3. Ensure the API request is correct, headers, parameters, and request body. 4. Review API logs to see if the backend logic is failing to return data. Scenario 2, API works on Postman but fails in the application. Question 2, you tested an API on Postman, and it works fine, but when integrated into the frontend, it fails. What could be the issue? Answer. Troubleshooting steps. 1. Check if the frontend is sending the correct headers, payload, and authentication tokens. 2. Inspect the browser console, F12 and network tab, to see error details. 3. Ensure there are no SRS issues blocking API requests from the frontend. 4. Compare request structures between Postman and the frontend code. Scenario 3, API returns different data in different environments. Question 3, an API returns correct data in staging but incorrect data in production. How will you troubleshoot? Answer. Possible causes and fixes. 1. Check if both environments have the same database and configurations. 2. Ensure API versions are the same across environments. 3. Debug API logs for any environment-specific changes, e.g., different database queries, caching issues. 4. Verify if any feature flags are enabled in production but not in staging. Scenario 4, API returns 403 forbidden even with correct credentials. Question 4, you are using the correct API key or token, but the request gets rejected with a 403 error. What could be wrong? Answer. Possible causes and fixes. 1. Ensure the API key has the right permissions, scope/roles. 2. Verify if the API requires IP whitelisting and if your IP is allowed. 3. Check if the account is restricted, banned, or has exceeded limits. 4. Look at API documentation to confirm if additional headers, e.g., XAPI key, are required. Scenario 5, API rate limit is being hit too frequently. Question 5, you are using the correct API key or token, but the request gets rejected with a 403 error. What could be wrong? Answer. Solution. 1. Implement rate limiting handling, e.g., retry after X seconds. 2. Use exponential backoff, gradually increasing wait time before retrying. 3. If possible, request a higher API rate limit from the provider. 4. Optimize API usage by caching responses instead of making repeated requests. Scenario 6. File upload API fails for large files. Question 6. A file upload API works fine for small files but fails for large files. What steps will you take? Answer. Possible issues and fixes. 1. Check if the server has a file size limit, e.g., 10 MB max. 2. Ensure the request uses multipart/form data and is properly formatted. 3. Look at server logs for timeout or memory limit errors. 4. Try chunked file uploads, splitting the file into smaller parts and uploading them sequentially. Scenario 7. API calls are taking too long to respond. Question 7. You notice that an API takes over 5 seconds to respond. How do you optimize it? Answer. Performance testing steps. 1. Use Postman or JMeter to analyze API response time. 2. Check database queries for slow execution or missing indexes. 3. Implement pagination for large data sets. 4. Optimize the API by enabling caching for frequently requested data. 5. Review backend logs to see if there are unnecessary computations slowing down the response. Scenario 8. API response contains sensitive data. Question 8. During testing, you notice that the API response includes sensitive information like passwords or tokens. What should you do? Answer. Security fixes. 1. Ensure that sensitive fields are encrypted or masked in the response. 2. Follow OWASP API security guidelines to prevent data leaks. 3. Implement proper role-based access control, RBAC, to restrict sensitive data. 4. Notify the development team to fix this issue before production release. Scenario 9. API works in the backend but not in mobile app. Question 9. Your API works when tested directly via Postman but fails when called from a mobile app. How will you debug this? Answer. Possible causes and fixes. 1. Check if the mobile app is sending correct headers, user agent, authorization, content type. 2. Verify if SORS or firewall rules are blocking mobile requests. 3. Look at mobile network logs to see if the API call is actually being made. 4. Test API from both Wi-Fi and mobile data to rule out network restrictions. Scenario 10. API returns duplicate records. Question 10. You call an API and receive duplicate data in the response. What could be wrong? Answer. Possible causes and fixes. 1. Check if the database query does not have a distinct condition. 2. Verify if caching issues are causing duplicate responses. 3. Look at the API business logic to see if it is merging duplicate data incorrectly. 4. Ask the backend team to apply proper indexing and unique constraints. Scenario 11. API request fails due to wrong content type. Question 11. You send a request, but the API returns a 415 unsupported media type error. How do you fix this? Answer. Possible solutions. 1. Ensure the content type header matches what the API expects, application/JSON, multipart/form data, etc. 2. Verify that the request body is correctly formatted, JSON, XML, etc. 3. If sending JSON, ensure it is properly structured and not missing brackets or commas. Scenario 12. API works for some users but not others. Question 12. Some users get correct responses, but others get errors. How will you debug this? Answer. Possible causes and fixes. 1. Check if the users have different roles or permissions affecting access. 2. Verify if the API requires user-specific tokens and if they are expired. 3. Look for geolocation-based restrictions that may block requests from certain regions. 4. Test API using multiple user accounts to identify the issue. Scenario 13. API test fails due to time zone issues. Question 13. You are testing an API that handles dates, and you notice inconsistencies in timestamps. What could be wrong? Answer. Possible solutions. 1. Verify if the API uses UTC or local time zone for date values. 2. Ensure the frontend correctly converts timestamps before displaying data. 3. Check if the API accepts ISO 8601 format, YYYMMDDTHH SSC, for consistency. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and share.